Let's just pretend. Chapter 9. Part 1. Orm barely got a moment of peace. The house had become a wedding factory, and she was the reluctant product being assembled on a conveyor belt of family duties. Every time she tried to sneak off to find Ling, someone else grabbed her by the arm with a new task. "Orm, honey, you haven't finalized the wine list," her Aunt Ern cried from the kitchen, waving a clipboard like it was a weapon. Moments later, her grandmother was shouting for her to inspect the ivory napkins. Then her mom, May, dragged her upstairs to try on hairpins with pearls, claiming it was urgent. It was like the universe was conspiring to keep her and Ling apart, just when Orm had finally worked up the courage to talk. After everything that happened between them, after all the unspoken tension, all the closeness, all the not-so-pretend moments, Orm needed clarity. But that clarity was apparently on pause while the decorator needed her opinion on whether the rose arches should be placed at the north entrance or the south terrace. Ling, meanwhile, was also busy. She was helping Jin with the seating chart and charming a pair of elderly uncles who had been skeptical of the whole two brides thing until Ling sat between them and told stories about how she used to chase Orm with a water gun when they were kids. Every time Orm passed by, she would catch Ling's gaze, and every time Ling would smile, soft, patient, waiting. Orm wished she could run to her, but instead, she was swept away to another meeting with the photographer about golden hour poses. By the time the sun began to dip and the household started to quiet, Orm had said yes to 17 decisions she didn't care about, and still hadn't gotten to say the one thing she needed to. Even her younger cousin got involved, dragging her to the front garden to look at where the dessert table should go. "This way the guests can Instagram it," she chirped. Orm wanted to scream. She wanted to tear off her pastel schedule sash and shout, "I'm not even really engaged." But that wasn't true anymore, was it? She caught another glimpse of Ling across the garden, now crouching to help the gardener fix one of the fairy light cords. Her hair was pulled into a loose braid, her white sundress clinging to her back in the afternoon heat. She looked calm, elegant, grounded. Nothing rattled Ling, not even this chaos. Orm, on the other hand, felt like she was unraveling, because underneath the pretense and pressure, something real had bloomed between them, and if they didn't talk about it soon, it might wither before it had a chance to become anything at all. "I need 5 minutes," Orm called out to her mother. "You'll get 10 with the florist after we approve the cake sketch," May shouted back, mistaking her daughter's plea for something else. Orm slumped onto the bench under the jasmine trellis, biting her lower lip. She wanted to go to Ling. She wanted to hear her voice, not across the garden, but next to her ear. She wanted to feel Ling's fingers on her wrist again, grounding her. She needed more than just glances and smiles. She needed truth. But all she got was another text from her aunt. "Meet me in the front hall. The violinist wants to know if you prefer Canon in D or 1,000 Years." Orm resisted the urge to scream. "I don't care," she mumbled to herself. But she did care. About Ling, and she was running out of time to tell her. Let's just pretend. Chapter 9. Part 2. The dressing room was a cloud of ivory tulle and scattered pins by the time Orm finished trying on her gown for the 3rd time. The seamstress kept fluttering around her like a hummingbird, mumbling about hems and hip fittings while Orm stood half numb in front of the mirror. "You look radiant, darling," her aunt gushed, snapping pictures for the family group chat. Orm managed a smile that didn't reach her eyes. After the last pin was secured and yet another lipstick shade was rejected by her mom, Orm was finally released. Before anyone else could snatch her for the next task, she darted out of the room and made a beeline for the West Wing, where she knew Ling was getting ready. She passed the decorator mid-argument with a staffer about whether orchids or peonies better matched the table linens. The poor man was clutching a tiny ceramic pot, as if it contained the secrets of the universe. Orm paused, tried to offer input, but the minute she said, "Maybe the orchids are more summery," they both beamed like she'd solved world hunger and resumed their frenzied discussion. She kept going. At the end of the hall, she found the door cracked open. Ling was inside, standing in front of the full-length mirror, slipping into a sleek champagne-colored gown that hugged her like it was made for her skin alone. Orm's breath caught. Ling turned slightly and caught her gaze in the mirror. "There you are." "I've been trying to get to you all day," Orm said, stepping in. Ling smiled. "I noticed." And just like that, the chaos of the house melted behind her. The dress Orm had tried on was beautiful, off-shoulder silk with a sweetheart neckline, subtle sequins catching light like stars. But she couldn't care less about how she looked. Not when her heart had been thudding wildly all day from things left unsaid. She passed another staging area in the hallway where someone was vigorously adjusting flower pots for the third time. The decorator turned to her in desperation. "Orm, quick, straight line or curved arrangement?" She looked at the line of porcelain vases lining the base of the staircase. "Curved?" He beamed. "Yes, I knew you had taste." She didn't stay to hear the rest. Her heels clicked softly on the marble as she reached the west wing. With every step, her nerves crept in. What would Ling say? Would she bring up last night? The fight? The kiss in the dressing room? The door to the bridal suite was open just a sliver, but it felt like a portal into another world, one where none of the chaos mattered, where it was just them. Ling's gown shimmered with a gold sheen as she smoothed it over her hips. She hadn't noticed Orm yet. For a moment, Orm just stared at the graceful slope of Ling's shoulders, the soft waves of her hair pinned up with delicate crystal clips. She looked ethereal, and yet real, tangible, hers. Ling finally looked up and smiled. "There you are." The sound of her voice grounded Orm instantly. "I've been trying to get to you all day," Orm said, stepping into the room. Ling turned fully, hands resting casually at her sides. "I noticed." The tension in Orm's chest eased. "I'm glad you came," Ling said, her voice gentler than it had been in days. "We need to talk." Orm nodded. "I know. I want to." And for the first time all day, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Let's just pretend. Chapter 9, Part 3. Ling motioned to the love seat in the corner of the room, away from the bustle just beyond the closed door. Orm sat, smoothing the folds of her dress as Ling settled beside her. "I know things have been messy," Ling began, her tone unusually tender. "And I've tried to be patient, to not pressure you. But I think I've waited long enough to say what I feel." Orm turned to her, unsure if her heart was racing from nerves or anticipation. Ling's gaze didn't waver. "I want to be with you, Orm. For real. Not pretend. Not just because of the arrangement or your family. I want this." Orm blinked. "Ling." Ling reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind Orm's ear. "I've never done this before. Not like this. I never let anyone in like I've let you in." "You've dated people." "Flings? Crushes? Nothing serious?" Ling said. "Because I always knew, deep down, that I was waiting for someone who actually mattered. Someone who scared me because they could break my heart if they wanted." Orm stared at her, lips parting slightly. Ling smiled. "That person was always you." The room felt too small for how big Orm's feelings suddenly became. Her throat tightened. Her fingers curled on her lap. "I thought I was imagining it," Orm whispered. "You weren't," Ling said. "I held back because I didn't want to lose you, but now not saying anything feels worse." The silence that followed buzzed with meaning. Finally, Orm reached for Ling's hand. "You were really waiting for me all this time?" Ling squeezed her fingers gently, every second. Orm had spent weeks telling herself that this was just a game, that none of it was real, that Ling was just doing her a favor because they were friends. But now, sitting here with Ling's fingers brushing hers so gently, so deliberately, it felt like every wall she had built to keep that belief alive was crumbling. "I never thought you felt that way," she said, her voice barely audible. Ling leaned back slightly, watching her. You don't have to say anything now. I just needed you to know. But why me? Orm asked, not out of insecurity, but sheer disbelief. You could have anyone. Ling chuckled softly. That's the thing. I didn't want anyone. I wanted you, even when I didn't fully understand what that meant yet. Orm's chest tightened. All those years, we were just friends. Were we? Ling tilted her head, teasing a little. Or was I just too scared to admit I was in love with my best friend? The word hit Orm like a crash of waves. Love. Orm looked down at their intertwined hands, heart pounding. I don't know if I'm ready. Ling didn't flinch. That's okay. I'm not asking you to be ready overnight. I just want you to know where I stand. You don't have to pretend anymore. Not with me. The room fell quiet again, but this time it felt like safety, like truth settling in between them. Orm leaned her head against Ling's shoulder. Thank you for waiting. Ling pressed her lips to the top of her head. Always. Orm didn't pull away. Not this time. The noises of the house, footsteps, laughter, voices calling her name, felt far away. Here, wrapped in Ling's presence, Orm felt like the version of herself she wanted to be. Braver, softer, loved. Maybe she wasn't ready to say everything yet, but she was ready to stop running. Let's just pretend. Chapter 9, Part 4. Orm slowly sat back up, her eyes still wide and searching Ling's face. But can you really settle down? She asked softly. I mean, you've never done the relationship thing. Not really. Ling's expression didn't change, but her fingers stilled on Orm's hand. You think I'm not capable of it? Orm hesitated. I think you're used to your freedom. And I'm scared that one day you'll wake up and realize this wasn't what you wanted after all. Ling was quiet for a moment. Then, without breaking eye contact, she said, Do you trust me? The question hit Orm harder than she expected. Ling's tone wasn't defensive. It was steady, gentle, like a rope being held out in the dark. Orm opened her mouth, then closed it again. She looked down at their hands, then back up. Yes, she said finally. Ling exhaled slowly. Then believe me when I say I want this, not just the party, not just the role. I want the life that comes after it. Orm blinked back, the pressure building in her eyes. Why me? Ling smiled. Because you see every part of me and still let me be exactly who I am. I thought I annoyed you half the time, Orm mumbled. You do. But you also make me laugh, make me think, make me feel everything. Orm didn't know whether to cry or kiss her again. Ling leaned in, her forehead brushing gently against Orm's. We'll figure this out. Together. And for the first time in days, Orm didn't feel like she was acting anymore. Orm let the moment settle between them, searching Ling's eyes for any trace of doubt. But there was none. Just warmth and certainty. You always make it look so easy, she said. Being brave. Ling smiled wryly. I'm only brave when it's for you. Orm laughed under her breath, shaking her head. You say the most unfair things. I mean every word.
The dressing room lights softened around them. For a long time they sat close, no longer rushed, no longer running. Orm reached up and adjusted Ling's collar, letting her fingers linger. I've been terrified, Orm admitted, that I was the only one falling. Ling took her hand. I fell a long time ago. You just didn't see it. I didn't want to, she said, because if I did, it would mean this was real, and real things break. Ling lifted her chin. Then let's not break it. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of everything unsaid. Orm leaned in, letting her lips brush Ling's in the softest whisper of a kiss. It wasn't like the ones they shared when pretending. It was raw and slow and honest. When they finally pulled apart, Ling traced her thumb along Orm's jaw. I love you. Orm's breath caught. She didn't say it back, not yet, but she didn't look away either. Instead, she nodded. Okay, let's try. Ling beamed. Good, because I already RSVP'd for forever. Orm rolled her eyes. You're ridiculous, but you trust me. Orm gave a tiny smile. With everything. From outside, they could hear voices calling Orm's name. Her mother, a cousin, someone asking if the napkins had been delivered. Ling stood and offered her hand. Time to face the chaos? Orm took it. Only if you stay close. Ling pulled her in. You couldn't drag me away. As they walked out together, side by side, the noise of the world returned, but it felt manageable now, because Ling was beside her. And that was more than enough. Let's just pretend. Chapter 9, Part 5. By the time the engagement party officially began, the mansion was glowing, every chandelier lit, every table perfectly set with crisp linen, flower arrangements, and little gold place cards with swirling calligraphy. The scent of fresh roses mixed with the aroma of grilled seafood and baked desserts wafting from the kitchen. Orm stood at the top of the staircase, dressed in a pale pink gown that shimmered with every movement. Her heart thudded as she looked out at the sea of family and friends arriving. Ling appeared beside her, effortlessly stunning in her tailored cream suit. Not too masculine, not too soft, just Ling, perfectly balanced and unmistakably hers. The moment they descended the stairs, all heads turned. There they are, Aunt May squealed. The future wives. Orm flushed. Grandma Bee waved her cane from the corner. I give them 3 months before they're pregnant. With dogs. Get them 2 golden retrievers. Mark my words. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Orm wanted to be embarrassed, but then Ling leaned in and murmured, You'd look cute with a retriever. Oh my God, Orm hissed, elbowing her. Ling grinned and pressed a kiss to Orm's cheek, right in front of everyone. More cheers erupted. Uncle Ben clinked his glass loudly. Speech! Speech! No, no, Orm protested, waving her hands. Let's just eat. Let them settle in first, her mother called, her voice proud and full of delight. Orm looked up at Ling, who gently squeezed her hand and mouthed, Breathe. And somehow, just like that, everything felt okay. Even if it was pretend, this moment felt real. The clinking of glasses and upbeat music filled the space as more guests filtered in, many of them longtime family friends Orm hadn't seen in years. Everyone wanted to meet the famous fiancé. Oh, you're even prettier in person, one of her aunts gushed to Ling, clutching her hands. And tall, another added. Orm always did like tall girls, though she never admitted it. Orm rolled her eyes. Can we talk about anything else? Not tonight, her mother said gleefully. Tonight is about love. Orm glanced sideways at Ling, who simply raised an eyebrow, clearly enjoying herself. They moved through the garden where more guests mingled with champagne flutes and plates of appetizers. Orm greeted cousins, smiled politely, and laughed when she needed to. But all the while she was aware of Ling's hand resting gently on her lower back. Everyone's watching us, Orm whispered. They're jealous, Ling whispered back. They wish their engagements were this hot. You're impossible, Ling leaned close again. But you like me. Orm tried not to grin, but failed. Later, after a toast from her brother that included a half-roast about their childhood and Orm's inability to cook pasta, the evening mellowed into candlelight and music. They danced once, twice, and then again. Slow songs, swaying steps. At one point, Orm's cheek rested on Ling's shoulder as a quiet instrumental played. For a night built on a lie, everything felt too perfect. But maybe, Orm thought as she let herself be held in Ling's arms, some lies had a way of turning true. As the evening drew on, Orm and Ling took a moment to slip away to the balcony. The night air was cooler now, scented with jasmine and a hint of ocean breeze. Fairy lights twinkled above them like stars caught in motion. Ling rested her elbows on the railing, gazing out. "You looked beautiful tonight." Orm, still flushed from dancing, glanced at her sideways. "You didn't look so bad yourself." There was a pause. Ling turned her head. "You still glad it's me?" Orm met her gaze. "Always." And in that quiet moment, surrounded by people who thought this was just the beginning of their happily ever after, Orm realized maybe it was.